Why is the term female considered offensive? It isn't considered offensive in isolation. It's about context. Male and female are terms used to refer to the sex of any species, but less commonly when discussing people. Man and woman refer specifically to the genders of people. What people find offensive is the habit of some people to talk about men and females. Some people feel that this subtly dehumanizes women and implies that their personhood is somehow in question. Female isn't offensive by itself. However, it's the scientific term for the female of any species, not specifically humans. So it's very jarring when someone says men and females in the same breath, like women are some kind of alien species. Context matters. Generally, the type of person who refers to a singular person or a group of real individuals as females doesn't consider them to be properly human the same way they consider men to be human. It's not the word itself is inherently offensive. It's that when in non-technical settings the people who use the word are using it in an offensive way. To some people, it can sound weirdly clinical to use females as a noun, like something out of a scientific paper, police medical report, or nature documentary. In those contexts it's fine, it's not like it's a slur. But in an ordinary conversational tone it can sound somewhat out of place. For a point of comparison, people and humans refer to approximately the same group, give or take some possible debate about whether animals or corporations or aliens or AI can ever be people. But if you take a simple question like why do people celebrate their birthdays, and instead phrase it as why do humans, then suddenly you sound like a robot doing anthropology, holding yourself at a remove from the group, being queried, heightening the effect. It has also acquired some connotations from certain virulent online misogynists who use it to try to sound scientific when they say heinous, sexist shit about women. So anyone familiar with that may find it trips an internal red flag of oh no, are you one of those? A lot of sexist men use female instead of woman in a dehumanizing way. So the term alone isn't offensive, but it's been linked to those men. It's used by incels as a means to reduce women to being less than human. See our men and females. Calling someone a female noun is dehumanizing. It's how a scientist would refer to an animal. Just use woman or girl instead. Using female as a noun feels very different than using it as an adjective. It feels less than human, like you're just body parts that could be attached to any animal. Plus nobody really calls men males. If it wasn't supposed to be dehumanizing, it'd be applied equally. It's often used to dehumanize women. Female is not offensive. This really is a context matters situation. If I'm a scientist, and I'm doing a study of how this medication affects people, referring to the subjects as human female and human male is not offensive. If I'm just some internet jagoff talking about how men are always expected to pay for dates with females, that's offensive. Because incels and losers started using it to describe women that won't date them. Female is not offensive as a term. It is how it is used that can be offensive. Male and female are words that indicate sex and genitalia rather than gender or personal expression. While they can be useful classifications, it can be off-putting and somewhat objectifying to be referred to by your sexual organs rather than your expression. It's generally fine if you're saying males and females. Men and females dehumanizes women. It's like calling all squares and only squares quadrilaterals. It's technically correct, but I'm going to question your unwillingness to use a more precise term that is equally if not more common, especially since you don't seem to mind using the word equilateral triangle for equilateral triangles. It's almost as if you were trying to equate squares to all other irregular polygons, because you consider squares as lesser than equilateral triangles. Something like that. It's only sexist if paired like men-females. Here it's dehumanizing women. Males-females is fine in context. Female is used inconsistently from the way male is, and even as a man, it's pretty cringe to hear. If a woman referred to a man as a male, you'd not unreasonably be confused, because even though you're technically a male, that's usually reserved as purely an adjective. In a way it feels dismissive. I imagine women feel the same note. Replace women with females and you may notice it. You should also note that a disproportionate amount of men that do this tend to find themselves less than popular with women. Find any incel group for examples aplenty. Whenever I hear women called females, I just know there's a crispy sock and a nice guy behind it. As adjective it's fine. As noun it isn't, because it's dehumanizing. A female can be an animal. Using male is just as offensive. It's the way it's used. Look around, you'll see posts that day something like men and females. At best, it's weird. At worst, it hints at being dehumanizing. It's not offensive if you use it as an adjective to describe women. You are female is fine. You are a female isn't. The noun is called woman, don't use female as a noun. And obviously, don't ever use it to include or fab non-women or exclude trans women. Don't call people female based on sexual characteristics, only based on gender identity.